Welcome back, football fans. In this video, we're going to take a look at some games from Monday to Wednesday. So if you're watching this and it's Tuesday or Wednesday, don't worry. I'm going to put timestamps down below. So that's going to be over there, isn't it? It's going to be sort of just hover. It depends on what device you're on. It might not be a hover situation. I hope you're enjoying these videos. The numbers on the previous video was crazy. Over 5,000 views. That is the most on any of these kind of videos because they're quite short term, aren't they? You've got a space of like 3 days to get people to watch them, and hopefully people find value in them. This week the Premier League returns, but we're going to start on Monday with some football from Portugal and elsewhere. So let's get into it. Now, just before we start, all of these games have been found with quick filters. So the ability to create filters on thousands of football games and just narrow down fixtures based on certain stats. You've got probability, the probability model, you can filter for the odds, and it's really powerful when you combine them. I'll just give you a quick example here. Both teams played 10 games or more. Let's just say points per game at home is 2.6 or more. We can save that for the home team and then we'll sort by that. Let's search. And we get Aston Villa against Newcastle because we're still looking at that day. But if we just click next 5 days, we can then apply those filters for all of the games that are upcoming. And you can just see how quick it is. And right now, you've got a great list, a great short list of games for strong home teams, potential home wins. So that's the tool that's been used to find all these games that I'm going to show you. So the first game from Monday, the 29th, is Getafe hosting Granada, the two Gs of the Spanish La Liga. And after 9 games at home, they've won 56% Getafe. And it was the odds that actually enticed me into this game. If you look at the odds here, the best you'll get is 1.88 with Unibet. And when we look at Granada's away form, they are winless and they have lost 9 of their 10 away games. Let's take a look at their results. So they have not scored in the last 3 games at Betis, at Celta Vigo and at Real Madrid, but they have lost the last 6 away from home. And of course, as we can see, they have lost the majority. So the question is, will they lose this one? Let's take a look at what the probability model is saying for this game. A 54% rating for Getafe, which is equal to 1.84 in odds. I will put that on as a prediction on Odd Alerts. Now, Getafe are slightly better at scoring goals away from home, and I do believe in the previous game they played, they got a few suspensions, or a very recent game. They had like 3 red cards, Greenwood being one of them. So just watch out for that. That could be a big reason for the increase in the odds, because as we saw with Granada, they are pretty terrible, to be honest, especially away from home. So what are you thinking about this game? 1.88 is the best you will get at the time of recording this on Sunday. On this channel, we like to create singles and doubles. I do not recommend large accumulators for obvious reasons. If you don't know those reasons, you're the bookmaker's best friend if you put on these large accumulators. The sooner you understand that, the more successful you will be. And the next game from Monday comes from Portugal. It is Sporting Lisbon, looking to maintain that 100% record at home. They've played 9, they've won 9. Let's take a look at their goals, shall we, first. So in terms of average goals, both scored and conceded for both of these teams, 3.44 at home and 3 away from home for Casa. So they are scoring 1.56 goals per game. They're also conceding 1.44. For Sporting, as you would expect, they are conceding fewer goals than their opponents in this one. So straight up, you would expect Sporting to win this game. I've not even looked at the odds yet, but we will in a moment. Because despite the record, it's not the home victory that led me to this game, as you'll see in a moment. So quite clearly, Sporting, one of the best teams, if not the best team in Portugal. Scoring for fun, they beat Porto before Christmas, and that's interesting to note as well, that they've only played 1 home game since the new year, but since returning they are on fire. 5 goals there, 3 goals and then 5. Before we look at the away team's form, let's take a look at the head-to-head between these two teams in recent meetings. So one thing that stands out straight away, BTTS. Casa have scored against Sporting Lisbon, and they scored 3 goals in 2023 as well. They've scored in every meeting since 2021. I think Casa have had ups and downs in terms of promotion and relegation. That's why there's only 4 games since 2021, but 2 in the last year, which both ended with BTTS landing. And now let's take a look at Casa, because their away form is intriguing. They concede quite a few goals, but just look at the goals scored as well. They've scored 7 in the last 2 away games played. They will be confident. And given those recent meetings, they'll know that they can get under the skin of this Sporting team. Will Sporting still win? Probably. On the previous video, we had Ajax and over 2.5 goals. That came in, I think it was 4-2. Those games are so fun, and it just looks like we might see something similar here for Sporting Lisbon. They had a 2-5 victory in the previous game. So with that, let's take a look at the odds for BTTS. We'll do a comparison on here, and it's looking all right, isn't it? 2.48 is the best you're going to get, and I do fancy that. Now, what I'll also do is set an alert for the odds of Sporting. So 1.2 at the minute. Let me know if it hits 1.8, which would indicate that the away team have taken the lead. It can happen. The away team could score first, but in terms of scoring first at home, 89% for Sporting. They're just a dominant force, aren't they? So that was the second game from Monday. Let me know what you think about that one. BTTS over evens. I'm quite liking that. It's quite a nice find. And it reminded me of the Ajax game when I was taking a look at it. So let me know what you think about this one in the comments. And with that, we will move on to the next game. On to Tuesday then, and we will be taking a look at some of these Premier League games. Now, the one I'm going to take a look at, the one that interests me the most, is that bottom one there, Aston Villa versus Newcastle. Let me just do something though. Out of all these games, how many goals will there be? Put your answer in the comments if you're watching this on YouTube, and I will pick a winner at random to win Odd Alerts Pro for a month. So the filters that you saw at the start of the video, that's part of Odd Alerts Pro. The trends pages, the quick alerts, value betting, player foul alerts. There is a lot of dropping odds as well. Player search tools for player bets and player props and stuff. There is a ton of features. If you're interested, go to oddalerts.com/pro. But if you want to win a month for free, how many goals in all of these games combined? So let's just look at the games we've got. Forest versus Arsenal, Fulham versus Everton, Luton versus Brighton. There was quite a few goals in that Brighton FA Cup tie, wasn't there? Was it 4-2 against Sheffield United? Crystal Palace are hosting Sheffield United, who are bottom of the league. And then Villa, Newcastle, the big one. Let's take a look at that. So when we look at the home form against the away form, there are some similarities between these two teams. There's a lot of goals. If we scroll down here, over 2.5 goals in 70% of games for both of these teams. BTTS or over 2.5 goals in 80% of home games for Unai Emery's Aston Villa. But the big difference comes when you look at the actual results, the actual points picked up. Just 5 points picked up for Newcastle away from home. That is dreadful. If we look at the tables and we just look at the points and we go to away from home, they are 19th. I don't know if you can see that, it's cut off, isn't it? But they are 19th. Only Sheffield United has fewer points after 10 games played away from home. If we look at the home form, incidentally, we will see that Aston Villa is top. They have the best home record in terms of average points per game there, 2.8. Liverpool close, and Newcastle, to be fair, as we expect at St James's Park, as we've come to know, especially under Eddie Howe, they are so solid, so good defensively. So what is going wrong away from home? Let's take a look at the results. Well, I mentioned the away form for Newcastle, but actually it doesn't matter where they play at the moment. They're not winning football games. They've lost the last 4 games, and they've only won once since the start of December, and that was at home to Fulham. But if we do toggle to the away form here, we can see it is not good. They scored twice at Liverpool in that last game, but if you watch that game, it was one-way traffic for the majority. They took their chances well. They were very clinical, and that is a big trait that they're going to have to lean on. But I'm going to be honest, I just feel the misery will continue for Newcastle. Joe Linton out until May. Lewis Miley, he's playing a lot of football. He's 17 years old. I don't think we should, put too much on him at that age. He's a very good player. Almiron looks like he could be on his way to Saudi Arabia as they try and raise funds. They lost out on Calvin Phillips. Seemed like they were interested. West Ham have signed him. And it just seems like that would have been a very good signing for him. He would have fit in well there with the group of players that they've got. And they need players. They need midfielders. And I just think Aston Villa, their strength is midfield. So I am going to go with a Aston Villa win here in terms of the Odd Alerts Predictions League. 1.82 points that will get me. And what do you think about that? Are you as confident in Aston Villa as me? And as I say, when it comes to the Premier League, most of what I'll do on here is, yes, I'll look at the data, but I watch a lot of Premier League, so I just feel the midfield can overrun Newcastle in this game, and that's before you even look at the home form of Aston Villa, which is superb. A game that I also wanted to show you quickly from Tuesday is Luton-Brighton. If you've been watching the YouTube channel for a while or listening to the That Football Stats podcast, which is basically, audio versions of these videos, then you would know I've mentioned Brighton's BTTS record quite a bit. But the last couple of games, as we can see there, have ended 0-0. But they did seem to find their scoring boots once more in the FA Cup. They scored 4 goals, and away from home, look at that form. It's not great, is it, this season for Brighton? I think we could see goals in this one despite those 0-0 results for Brighton recently. If we look at the away form here, clean sheets in just 10% of games for both of these teams. So 1 clean sheet at home for Luton, 1 away from home for Brighton. BTTS has landed in 80% of games, again, when looking at the home form of Luton and the away form of Brighton. And we can see that it is 1.62, and I'm going to say, tell me if it hits evens. So if there's a slow start to this game, I will be notified, and then we can jump to the timings tab and just take a look at the first half goals, which are really, really low for both of these teams. Wednesday, the 31st of January, Vincent Kompany coming back to the Etihad. There was a meeting between these two in the Cup last year, wasn't there? It was this one, 6-0 to Manchester City. Now, I actually think Burnley were better last year than they have been this year in terms of the way they score goals, and they still managed to fire blanks in every game in recent history against Manchester City. So it's not looking good for them. We give them a 83% chance of losing, so City to win, 83%, that's 1.2 converted into odds, which is actually better than the bookmakers will give you, 1.12, so it's just not worth it. But again, this is why we have alerts. Let's look at the timing. Man City have won every single game by half time. Is that a market to potentially go into? Well, we can set alerts on this as well. First half goals, let's tell me if that hits 1.8, and then the half time result, tell me if that hits 1.8 as well. You never know, they might start slow, and you can be notified without having to have your eyes glued to Bet365 or wherever you may place your bets. And last but not least, we are going to look at Spurs hosting Brentford. I know there's a massive game at the bottom of that list. You're shouting at me, why are you not doing Liverpool-Chelsea? I'm going to do Liverpool-Chelsea. Don't worry, it's going to be a separate video because I want to touch on Jurgen Klopp and the atmosphere that is going to be on show at Anfield. It's going to be an emotional night, the first night since he announced that he would leave. Imagine what it's going to be like on his final game. But to Tottenham, and I was really disappointed with Tottenham against Manchester City, but at the same time, Man City went there and showed us what they are all about at the minute, what stage of their season they're at in terms of when they purr. That was a really controlled performance against Spurs. And if we just look at the results coming into this for Spurs, we mentioned in the Man City Spurs preview that I did the other day that they can score goals. They're more than capable. This is their Premier League form. If you look at the home games, they are scoring in every single home game. And here against Brentford, you would imagine that to continue. The thing about Brentford now is they've got someone called Ivan Toney up top. And that victory there against Forest is massive for Thomas Frank and Ivan Toney. It looks like he's going to stay, doesn't it, until the summer. And he will be wanting to do everything he can to get into that England team, or certainly put his name in Gareth Southgate's mind. And BTTS has landed in the last 4 games. Plenty of goals, by the way, in those recent games for Brentford. They've not defended that well. Certainly not what we're used to. I think they're really missing Henry on the left. They brought in Reguilon as well, who is a decent player, but he will not be able to play in this game. So again, I think they've patched that left side for the second half of the season, but he will be unavailable. So that's something to keep in mind. So what are you thinking for this game? Will Tottenham bounce back? I think they'll be desperate to bounce back. And I think looking at that team that started against City, you can add a few players from the bench. Maddison coming back in. This could be a massive game for him. And I just think adding him into the mix, I was really disappointed with Spurs in that game. Really disappointed. But City are on another level. And especially without Maddison, without that fluidity, without Sarr, without Basuma, without Son, there can be games like that for Spurs. I think it's acceptable, but I do believe they'll bounce back with a victory and with at least a couple of goals. So they're the games that I'm looking at from Monday to Wednesday. There's obviously hundreds more on the site. I encourage you to use the filters. You'll find golden nuggets everywhere. Let me know what you think in the comments. And now we begin the process of removing 2 of these. So it's a fourfold at 16.62. Now let me just have a look and a think at the minute. So we've got BTTS in the sporting game. I am going to keep that one. I'm going to keep that one. I just quite like that when I was doing the analysis of the game. I think, what was it, 7 goals in the last couple of away games. Of course, going to Sporting is a different proposition for them, but I quite like that one. Getafe I will cull. So Getafe is the game that I'm going to remove. I'm going to keep Villa and the bet builder here as a double, and then play Sporting as a single. So 2.25 for BTTS there. Aston Villa, I do think they'll win this game. I just think there's a lot of problems building for Eddie Howe and Newcastle. I don't think he'll get sacked. I don't think he should get sacked. I just think they're in a bit of a tight spot with injuries and fitness. And look, they were already looking exhausted before Joel Linton got injured and before Almiron had to be sold to Saudi Arabia. As I record this, that's not done. But he was left out of the squad the other day in the FA Cup for, illness reasons or whatever. So it looks like he's on his way so that they can raise some funds to potentially enter the market in the next couple of days. But as I record this on the 28th, I wouldn't expect any player to be signed and in this squad for this game. And even if they were, I wouldn't expect it to make a massive difference in this particular fixture away at Aston Villa. So 1.9 for Aston Villa. And then in the Tottenham game, Tottenham to win and over 2.5 goals. So Spurs to bounce back. What do you think? As a treble, it's 9.23, but I would suggest splitting it up as I always do. Doubles are the way, singles are even better. Do you want to get all of these games in a Telegram for free every day? Well, you can. There is a link in the description to the Telegram channel. You can join it. It's called the Trends Digest by Odd Alerts, and I will be popping in some of these games. I won't bombard you. I won't spam you. I'm thinking at the moment about 3 per day. You can check the stats. It'll be written personally by me, just as an experiment. Just want to see if this is something people would enjoy. And then the next step would be to let you customize it and subscribe to these trends and get detailed analysis sent directly to your Telegram. So if that's something you would like to try, the link is in the description. And that's it. That's a wrap. If you've enjoyed this predictions video, please leave a comment, please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't. I think 60% of people that watched the previous video don't subscribe. So if you can spare a moment to just scroll down there, click the button, I would really appreciate it.